Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, everyone? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of the latest printing of Absolute Transmetropolitan from DC Comics. So let's take a look at this together. And welcome back, everybody. So here we have the latest printing of Transmetropolitan, and this, of course, is Volume 1, Absolute Transmetropolitan at that. This has been previously printed before. This is the actual third printing of this Absolute edition. So I do have, just wanted to show what the back looks like. I do have the original printing here, and we're going to do a quick little comparison to the outer shell, and then, of course, the book itself. Absolute Transmetropolitan, more now is Darick Robertson and Rodney Ramos, looking identical. You know, you've got Spider Jerusalem up there typing away at his keyboard. And then the back of the spine right here looking a little bit different. This right here pattern that we have stops at the very top of the new printing of the Absolute while it goes down to here. And Absolute Transmetropolitan looks like it's been shifted up just a little bit. That definitely has been shifted up one. And then, of course, the DC logo, because there is no more Vertigo. But it is coming back this year, so I don't know if future printings will... I don't know. I really don't know. Oh, I still have the leaflet there, but this is the piece in the back. As a matter of fact, this leaflet comes right off, and it's got that sticky goo right here that we can just get rid of. But anyway, Absolute Transmetropolitan Volume 1, the printing here is $150. You can actually find the same information, or rather the same ISBN down here, and ages 17 plus, the DC Black Label logo there. That is going to be interesting, because if they are bringing Vertigo back, I wonder if they're going to... Well, anyway. And then, of course, this one being the original printing, and $125. Now, let's get it out of the slipcase. All right, so we have the front cover here, of course, by Darick Robertson, looking just a little bit, and I mean just a little bit darker over here. And then the spine of the actual book, and that has changed as well. DC logo, Vertigo logo. And the Absolute Transmetropolitan looking a lot more vibrant than the yellow here. And I promise it's not dust. And then the back of the... Yeah, I guess darker, a little more vibrant is the way that I would use to describe the difference from the original printing to the new printing. All right, so we are going to go ahead and crack this book open, talk about the stories found in here, and look at the extras, and of course the comparison of the book. I'm going to give you the pitch of the stories and the type of stories that are in here, for those of you wondering that have never heard of Transmetropolitan. All right, let's go ahead and crack this book open. You have the pattern that you had on the slipcase, the outer shell, right here for the end sheets, and then this little smiley face, which plays kind of a big part in here. Some of the protagonists and, of course, antagonists from the stories, and then the credits right here. Written by Warren Ellis, art by Darick Robertson, Rodney Ramos, with Keith Aiken, Jerome K. Moore, Ray Crissing, and then coloring by Nathan Earing, lettering by Clem Robbins. So that is something to note. Like, if you can't buy anything with Warren Ellis' name, by all means, there's plenty of other comics out there. But I am here to talk about the story, and how I found out about this story was... It doesn't happen very often. But first, here is the Transmetropolitan table of contents, what's collected in here, including your introduction here by Stuart Moore. Talking about just how different things were back then in the 90s, because we are at an era of 1997, which is just insane to think about. It just doesn't feel like it's almost 30 years ago. It means I graduated in 96. I'm going to have a 30-year reunion in 2020. Oh, my God. Anyway, what the hell was I saying? Yes, 1997 to 2002. Before iPads, before, like, he talks about Kindles, he talks about all these new tech things that we have for technology, didn't exist, like, back then in 97. and how ahead of its time this story is. So first of all, I do want to say that collected in here is Transmetropolitan 1 through 18, and the story Edgy Winter from Vertigo Winter's Edge number 2. I think for some reason solicitations show it that it has collecting issues 1 through 21. That's not the case here. It is just issues 1 through 18. So please keep that in mind. Don't think that your copy is all jacked up and messed up. All right, so to kind of give you the pitch of this, this is a story about this future that we don't really know when. Perhaps it is kind of rumored that's supposed to be the 23rd century, where we have this hermit of a man living in this cabin out in the goddamn mountain, and just wanting to get away from society. And he's being pressured by his editor that there is a contract out for him. And I love that he mistakes a contract, meaning that somebody has put a hit on him. And the editor's like, no, you owe us 2 books. And if you don't write these 2 books that we gave you in advance for 5 years ago, we're going to sue you. And you know you can't write books up there, so you got to go back to the city. And he hates the city. And this immediately shows you what kind of character this man is. And what he ends up doing is he packs up, he gets in his car, and drives off. But before he drives away from this mountain village where he stayed, where he's been a hermit, where he's gotten to know just a couple of people, including people at this bar right here, he blows up the bar because he says, if I'm miserable, everybody's got to be miserable. And that is the type of character that this Alan Moore looking dude is. And that is, of course, Spider Jerusalem. And if you're thinking, wait a second, that doesn't look like this guy right here. Oh, well, because something happens in the first issue. All right, so Spider Jerusalem gets called back to the city to write these 2 books that he has been paid for already 5 years ago. And what he realizes is that he has to make some money. So what does he do? He becomes a journalist. He reaches out to his old partner, who is now the editor, Mitchell Royce, and edits this newspaper. It's the city's largest newspaper called, it's The Word. Yes. Sorry, for some reason I was thinking The World. By the way, this does have mature themes. There's nudity and sexual content in here, and of course, ultra-violence. So if you can't stomach any of those things, by all means, this book is not for you. I just don't want to accidentally turn into a particular page, and you're like, wait a second, you didn't say anything about boobage? Yeah, well, now I did, so I covered all my bases. All right, so he agrees to work with him and write articles and go deep into the city to try to find out, what is going on. So what happens, how he turns from this Alan Moore type of looking guy to this Grant Morrison type of guy, and believe me, I think that, I've always thought that was on purpose, is he accidentally tells the shower, which of course everything is AI in this future, that he needs to be cleansed. So it kind of singes off all his hair. And he finds out that his house is addicted to drugs, or his appliances are addicted to drugs in the first issue. Now, this is getting him back on the streets as a reporter. And one of the stories, keep in mind, 1997 again. But by the way, originally published in the Helix imprint. So back then, DC was trying out new things, including new type of imprints. So they used this word called Helix. At one time, I think, actually, Stuart Moore talks about how they were going to call it Matrix, but there was this movie right around the corner, and it was a no. So they went with Helix. It only lasted for like half a year, and then Transmetropolitan jumped over to Vertigo. It's the only title that survived the Helix imprint. All right, so back to the story. He is investigating these group of people that are being oppressed, and what these people are is they're transitioning into alien beings. So these humans have been taking drugs and going through different surgeries to make themselves aliens. Like, I'm sure you can probably tell, like the Greys that you've seen on television. That's the type of story that he's investigating at first. It's this human-alien hybrid movement. And that's the first 3 issues. He meets this character named Fred. And of course, the type of brutality that this group of people are dealing with from the police officers. And again, it also shows you the type of character that he is. When he uncovers some secrets, and talks about the police brutality, and he gets his ass handed to him by the cops. But instead of laying low, I love this part right here. He just starts laughing it off. And he's like, I'm here to stay, shoot me, and I'll spit your goddamn bullets back in your face. That's the type of character that Spider Jerusalem is. And I almost called him Hunter S. Thompson, even though most of us probably know. Now, in the first 3 issues, we do get to meet one of his first assistants, or as he likes to call them, filthy assistants. And that is this character right here. So this is one of the strippers that was working at the joint in the first 3 issues, and she is Shannon Yarrow. She used to strip 3 nights a week, and now she becomes his assistant, and it's almost like against his will. What they end up doing here, though, is ambushing the President of the United States, and also known as the Beast. So there's a lot of political things, especially in the last part of this issue. So most of the first year is about exploring the city and all the wrongs that are going on within there. There is an entire issue dedicated to him just watching television. I think it's this one here. Yeah, he's just watching television, and then he gets absorbed into each of these stories, and he realizes that he's become addicted to it, and he himself is a television. It's really interesting and almost like an outer body experience, which is what you expect out of a Hunter S. Thompson story. But also, that's what Transmetropolitan is. Both him and Shannon Yarrow end up exploring this religious cult, and they're doing these like daily television broadcasts, and he kind of becomes part of this daily broadcast later on. But that's what the first year is about. And oh my gosh, okay, I gotta talk about the dog. Yes, by the way, the hybrid aliens are still part of the story. The city plays a big part. Again, the first year is about exploring the city and some of the futuristic things you're going to be seeing here. One of the things that Darick Robertson did, I didn't know this until I reread, or I guess I read it when it first came out. That introduction by Stuart Moore talks about inspiration for like the architecture, because apparently Darick Robertson was living in Italy at the time. So he got a lot of inspiration from like the Italian architect. This issue right here, is this Bad Doggy? I think this is Bad Doggy, if I'm not mistaken. So again, lots of violence, lots of brutality. But there is an issue with the dog. This issue right here is so awesome. So there's this dog that is searching him. He's a sentient dog that blames Spider for the loss of his genitals because he's been castrated. So that's what this issue is about. It's about a revenge plot. And then that eventually, this whole issue with Bad Doggy, that eventually leads into year 2. Now, year 2 takes a little bit of a turn. We got a little bit of this when I talked about the president, but in year 2, we are introduced to a new candidate. And the candidate is Gary Callahan, this guy right here, that is running for president of the United States, running up against the president. Now, this is also when we meet, that's such a badass picture. The mutated cat, I forgot about that. Like, there's such a complexity to his character. You know, he beats up like an old homeless guy because he doesn't agree with the things that he's selling, and he feels like he's taking advantage of people. Yet he takes in a mutated cat because he feels pity for it. He's a very complex character. I wanted to show you the introduction of this character right here. This is Yelena Rossini, who will become his other assistant too. His other filthy assistant, as he likes to call him. But she's related to Roy's. She is his niece. And together they will go on all sorts, I don't want to call them misadventures even, but they go and get into all kinds of trouble, especially dealing with the character of Gary Callahan, or as he is known as, the Smiler, because there's a lot of corrupt things going on. Like, at first you don't know exactly who to trust, which of the candidates to trust, and then because of his reporter ways, Spider Jerusalem figures out, wait a second, something's off with this guy, and I need to spread the word. And it becomes a whole cover-up. Oh, man, it is so good. And again, way ahead of its time, you know, dealing with a lot of social justice issues and that I think to this day are really relevant. And then, of course, the political aspect of things and how corrupt the government is. And yes, of course, things like that are always timeless, right? If you can't trust the governments of the world, who can we trust? I don't know why I love quoting Yahoo Serious. I love Young Einstein. Anyway, let's look at the back here. This is the I Hate It here. This is the story told through Spider Jerusalem's words, drawn by different artists. And this was part of the Winter's, the Vertigo Winter's Edge. So that is collected in here. And then in the very back, we have the transverse sections. This is about the aliens right here. And these are augmented memories. I love that they use augmented memories from Darick Robertson and Warren Ellis. So there is the script to art section right here. I love that they add things like this in case anybody has ever wondered what comic book script looks like and what the artist grabs from it. I think it's unique. I love that they add things like this, and more, you know. Now we have complete collections added like that. So this is the artwork right here for covers for trade paperbacks, and the trades came out from 98 to 2004. So I said that my way of finding out about this book was very unique because it doesn't happen to me very often. So I left comics, I think I've talked about this a lot on my channel, but in case you're new to my channel, I left comic books with Onslaught. Onslaught destroyed my love of comics. I think it had to do more with me just going into college. So I left Onslaught behind and comics behind, and I left the world for a long time of comics. The world, just the world of comics. Here's your bio right here on the creators. So you have Warren Ellis, Darick Robertson, Rodney Ramos, and Keith Aiken. Jerome K. Moore, Kim DeMulder, and Ray Chrising, and Dick Giordano, and then your end sheets. And here, we'll look at the binding and then flip through some more pages. 544 pages, sewn binding, and again, retailing for $150, and printed in this thick matte paper stock. So when I left, I came back, you know, a friend of mine was like, have you read Grant Morrison's X-Men, New X-Men? I was like, you know, I read Grant Morrison's JLA, and it was ups and downs, and my buddy was like, no, you got to try it out. So one of the most interesting things, I've talked about my buddy Michael Knight just recently, talking about his obscure taste in comics. He didn't get a lot of comics. One of them was Dr. Fate, and then Fate. Like, who collected Fate? But I remember when I was out of comics, he was telling me, he's like, dude, have you read this comic book? I can't remember the name. It's got this guy with these, like, futuristic glasses. It's like Hunter S. Thompson. It's like Spider something. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? Even, like, among my friends, like, I was the comic book guy. So I had no idea what he was talking about because this came out in 97 to 2002. The years that I was gone from comics. So I didn't know about Spider Jerusalem or Transmetropolitan. And he was like, yeah, man, it's really cool. And I was like, bull crap. There's no such thing. I thought he was talking about Spider-Man or, like, Tarantula, one of those characters. So one day I go over to his house and he's got like a couple of these trade paperbacks that Vertigo had been releasing. They started releasing them in 98. You saw the covers on the back here. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And he was like, look, man. And I recognized the name Warren Ellis. He had written stuff for Marvel Comics at the time because I was a big Marvel guy. I remember the run that he had on like Excalibur. And then, of course, the whole Son of Satan story. But I had no idea what this was. And he was like, you should borrow it. And I was like, nah, man, you know, I'm kind of done with comics. And then about a year later, I was getting back into it. And then Astonishing X-Men revived my love of comics. And here I am, these years making videos for you fine people. And I went back to my buddy Mike and I was like, hey, dude, that offer still stand? Can I borrow those trade paperbacks? I'm absorbing everything right now. He's like, yeah, man. And he didn't have volume 5. What kind of monster has like 1 through 4 and then like 6 through 10. Monster did probably read it once and gave it away. So I ended up buying my own set because I fell in love with this world. I fell in love with the concept. And I remember Darick Robertson's art in New Warriors. I was a huge fan. And then like fill-in issue of Wolverine. So yeah, That's where I found out. Like, it's very rare that somebody tells me about a comic I didn't know existed, and then I fall in love with it. It's usually the other way around, especially if you've been on my channel for a while. And that's not a pompous thing, right? It's not like I know everything, because I don't. To this day, I'm still being introduced to new comics, and I love it. I love when you all reach out and ask me, have I read this? Have I read that? And most of the time I have, but sometimes I'm like, no. And then, you know, the conversation starts and it keeps going like, oh, dude, you should totally read it because of this and this and this. If you like this, you'll love this. What the hell was I saying? Oh, yeah, I'm going to compare this to the original printing. All right, we have the original printing here on the left-hand side and the new printing on the right. And sheets right there. Looking a little more hot pink on the right-hand side. The emblem looking about the same. The internal colors looking about the same. The new printing laying over a little bit better. Introduction. Same page count, by the way, 544 pages. One of the things I do on my channel is when I get a new printing of a book, I go page by page. It is ridiculous. It might be overdoing it, but I just want to make sure it has the exact same page count. That's why sometimes when you see my overviews, you'll see me going, oh, and this is out of sequence. It's not because I memorized everything. It's because I went page by page, making sure everything is intact and page count matches. The one thing like the original printing that I can gripe about, and it's a small gripe, but I'm so used to it nowadays because I understand it does read better like a novel almost, is that it doesn't have any like issue numbers, right? Like you don't know that this is issue number 2. You know, it's a chapter break, but then you don't know what issue you're on. But you are given, thank goodness, much like the original printing, I forgot to point this out, a beautiful black ribbon, just like your original printing. So, and now that I'm looking internally, the thickness of the paper stock is identical. Like, yeah, I don't see or feel any difference. And the colors look the same, so I think they are using the exact same paper stock. But that's it. I think that is the first time I've gotten to talk about Transmetropolitan in depth. I know it's made it on my list a few times, but first time I actually had to sit down and talk to you all about Transmetropolitan. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this printing, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, a page count, build, and of course the comparison to the original printing. In the comments down below, let me know if you are picking this up, if you already have it, if you're hoping that they reprint the rest, which we know that Volume 3 is coming, in case you missed any of them. But this being the third printing makes me think that they're going to keep those in print eventually. And also, they were voted in our top 20 most wanted DC absolute and omnibus reprint poll that we do. Well, we started it last year. We're doing it again this year. But that's it, everybody. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button. Check us out on Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.